Here are some photos taken right before disaster, part 27. This photo was taken at the Burning Man festival. Aaron Mitchell thought it would be a good idea to run straight into the burning effigy. And just as you would think, he burned to death. And this is the last photo ever taken of him. This photo shows 14-year-old Keith Sapsford. He hid in the wheel compartment of a flight heading from Sydney to Japan. The photo was captured by John Gilspin, who was testing out his new camera lens, when he accidentally captured the last moments of Keith's life. Geraldine thought it would be a good idea to go on a hiking expedition all by herself, but she ended up going missing, and it wasn't until 2 years later when her body was finally found. She had likely died from starvation and exposure to the elements. She tried to text her husband to contact authorities, but none of them went through. And this was the last photo of her taken before her hike. This guy bit himself with a snake every day until something horrific happened. His name is Steve Ludman, and he's turned himself into a real-life science experiment. When he was 17, he made it his mission to mutate his cells through snake venom. One day he bought a bunch of venomous snakes and started experimenting on himself by injecting the venom into his skin. At first, everything was great, and Steve began feeling almost superhuman. He did this for 4 years until one day he got extremely sick. Steve was rushed to the hospital with a strange illness and was not expected to live. Doctors gave him a 1% chance of survival, and after 3 weeks of no improvement, his girlfriend did something drastic. She snuck into his hospital room and administered him Cobra snake venom. But little did she know that would change his life forever. Steve woke up and made a full recovery just hours later. And to this day, he's immune to snake venom and cannot feel pain. This man cheated death 7 times, but what happened to him after will shock you. His name is Franz Selleck. When he was 33 years old, his train crashed into a river, killing 17 people, but he managed to survive. 1 year later, he was flying on an airplane when the plane doors blew open and he blew out with it. And believe it or not, he survived by landing on a haystack. 3 years later, he was on a bus that plunged into a river, killing 4 people, but not him. When he was 41, his gas tank exploded, but he managed to react in time and escape. Just 1 year later, he was in another bus accident that killed 2 people, but of course he somehow managed to survive. But in 2003, his life changed forever. In 2003, he went on to win the lottery and become a millionaire. He truly is the most lucky person ever. China did something really messed up at the Olympics involving this little girl that most people don't know about. During the 2008 Beijing Olympics, a 9-year-old sang the national anthem. But what could be wrong with that, you may ask? Well, it turns out this 9-year-old was lip-syncing. And who was the real singer? It was this 7-year-old girl who was kept backstage because she was considered to be not good looking enough. And the government thought she would ruin China's image. Doctors thought this 5-year-old girl had a tumor, but when they took one look at her x-ray, they found out the horrifying truth. Back in 1933, in a small town located in Peru, a baby mysteriously showed up at the front door of the local orphanage. Nobody had the slightest idea of where the baby came from. But later that week, a young couple adopted her and named her Lina. But as Lina grew older, the townspeople feared her, claiming she was possessed. Years went by of this, but on Lina's 5th birthday, she noticed a strange bump at the bottom of her stomach. She told her parents, but they just laughed it off, assuming she was imagining things. Months and months passed, and her stomach grew bigger every day. Finally, her parents took her to the doctors, where they decided to run some tests. But when they took one look at her x-rays, they could not believe their eyes. Doctors found out she was 9 months pregnant and removed the baby immediately, making her the youngest confirmed mother in the world. These conjoined brothers who are attached at the hip do not want to be separated. Shivanath and Shivram Sahu are conjoined twins from India who are attached at the waist. The twins share 2 legs and 4 arms, but have separate hearts and brains, and despite sharing a body, they actually live a pretty normal life. They're able to shower, eat, and dress themselves, and they even found out a way to ride their bike to school together. However, life is about to get a lot more complicated for the twins, as doctors say they can't actually be separated. If they tried to, the weaker one, Shivanath, would most likely die. Shivram, the stronger one, would most likely retain both legs and live a normal life. But the twins say even if they could afford the surgery, they wouldn't do it. Because any challenge they face in life, they want to face together. What Pablo Escobar did when his daughter asked him for a unicorn was crazy and will shock you. Just in case you don't already know, Pablo Escobar was rich. In fact, one time his daughter was cold, so he grabbed all the paper that was around him and burned it to keep her warm. That paper was $2 million worth of cash. But when his daughter asked him for a unicorn, he couldn't exactly get one because they're not real. But this man is not gonna let reality get in his way. So one day he got his men to bring him a white horse. But a unicorn has a horn and wings. So Pablo Escobar had his men staple a horn and colorful wings onto that horse. Literally stapled it. But unfortunately, the horse died from infection. This man was attacked by a shark, but instead of killing him, it actually ended up saving his life, and you won't believe how. In 2015, Eugene took his girlfriend and his 2 kids to California for a family vacation. As him and his daughter swam off the shores of Huntington Beach, he could sense something was wrong. Instantly, he felt a sharp pain in his back and he was pulled down to the bottom of the ocean. A great white shark had attacked him and wasn't letting him go. But somehow Eugene managed to escape to the surface. He barely made it to shore and was bleeding everywhere. There was a massive gash in his back, but eventually it stopped bleeding. And Eugene didn't really want to ruin his family vacation, so he decided to not go to the hospital and just wait to get it checked out at home. A week later, when they arrived back at home, Eugene finally decided to go to the hospital. But when doctors scanned Eugene's x-rays, they could not believe their eyes. Doctors found a cancerous tumor, and thankfully they were able to remove it in time. Here's what people from 100 years ago thought the world would look like today. First off, they thought we would have automatic moving sidewalks. Next, they thought we would have roofs over our cities to protect us from the weather. And speaking about weather, they thought we would have weather controlling machines. Next up is video calls, which they actually did get right. Next, they thought we would walk on water with the help of balloons. Next, they thought we would have flying taxis, which I really do hope we get one day. This is the most terrifying bathroom you'll ever see. The bathroom is located in a secret underground bar in Tokyo. And this horrifying face watches you on the toilet. Now, the inside of the toilet has special pressure sensors, so the more you do, the closer it gets to you. It will sing to you as it slowly moves closer until eventually it violates you. Watch this. The NFL has hired private investigators to stop this man because he has broken into the Super Bowl 35 times. And I promise you are not gonna believe the Hall of Fame picture of him I show you at the end. The thing about Dion Rich is that he is a great talker. So he has snuck into parties at the Playboy Mansion and met tons of famous people, including NFL players. So before Super Bowl 1, he found out where the bus was gonna drop off the Kansas City Chiefs. He simply got there before them, put on a team jacket, and walked into the locker rooms. And he was hooked. After that, he snuck into almost every Super Bowl using disguises. Until the NFL started seeing pictures of him at every Super Bowl, so they started to look out for him. No problem though, because he was friends with some Denver Broncos before Super Bowl 12. He got a ride with them and stayed on the sidelines. The Cowboys ended up winning, but they got this photo of Dion Rich carrying the Cowboys head coach. This girl was abandoned by her parents and raised by wild dogs. Oksana Malaya was only 3 years old when she was neglected by her alcoholic parents who left her outside one night. With the night being cold, she crawled to the closest thing that could provide her with warmth and shelter, which was the dog kennel. The next morning, her parents didn't even notice she was missing. So she ended up living in the dog kennel, surviving off of the food scraps the dogs left over. Even though she would see humans from a distance and occasionally crawl on all fours into her house like a stray, humans were no longer her species. Slowly, Oksana became one of the pack, and it wasn't until 5 years later when a neighbor notified the police that a little girl was being raised by wild dogs. By the time she was rescued, she lost all ability to speak and was running on all fours like a dog. Now at the age of 34, she lives in a home for the mentally disabled and is said to have the mental capacity of a 6-year-old. This little girl suddenly passed away, but what her mom found in a secret letter will make you cry. 12-year-old Taylor was just like any other girl her age. One day she was doing homework when suddenly she felt a strong pain in her chest. She then collapsed to the floor and her mom called 911. Taylor was then rushed to the hospital in critical condition. The doctors discovered she had severe pneumonia and she slipped into a coma. And a few days later she sadly passed away. Her mother was devastated, but as she went to go clean her room, she found a secret letter that she had written. The letter was actually a message to herself that she was supposed to open in 2023. She talked about her hopes, dreams, and her relationship with God. Her mother was so inspired by this that she actually wrote a book on it. This man discovered he was married to twins when one of them got into a car accident. Charlie Bernard lived in Florida in 1984. While there, he met a girl named Amanda Hopkins who went to the same college. They started dating, and after only 2 years they moved in together and got married. But soon after, Charlie began to notice strange behavior from Amanda, like day-to-day mood swings and forgetfulness. One night while Charlie was home alone, he got a call from the police telling him that Amanda was in a car accident and was at the hospital in critical condition. But just as he was about to head to the hospital, he heard the front door open. He was speechless to see Amanda walk in, but she was confused at his reaction. Charlie then explained to her the phone calls he had just received about her. Hearing what happened to Amanda, she burst into tears and told him the truth. Her name was Joy and she was Amanda's twin sister. When Amanda got married to Charlie, they didn't want to lead different lives, so they decided they would take turns being Amanda. This boy claimed he remembered his past life until his parents discovered he wasn't lying. A Syrian boy named Arius was born with a particular red birthmark across his forehead. As soon as he could speak, he explained to his parents that he had already lived a past life as another man, claiming he was murdered with an axe by his own neighbor. It turns out a man in their village had gone missing years earlier and the neighbor was the prime suspect. So Arius and his parents went to the neighbor's house to find out the truth. When the neighbor opened the door, he turned white as a ghost, claiming he was innocent. But Arius demanded the neighbor to come with them as he knew where his own body was buried. Arius led them miles from the village to a specific spot under a tree and they started digging, but you won't believe what they found underneath. They found a skull that was cracked exactly where Arius's birthmark was. Everyone was shocked and the neighbor was later arrested and sentenced to death. This girl's dad offered $128 million to any guy who can marry her. Gigi Chao is the daughter of a Chinese billionaire, and even though she's never had trouble attracting guys, she's a lesbian and her dad doesn't like that. So in an attempt to make his gay daughter straight, he offered $128 million to any guy that can make Gigi find them attractive. Even though 20,000 males from all around the world showed interest, Gigi rejected them all. She told her father that she'll marry a man when he marries a man, and now she's an advocate for the LGBT community. This man was frozen in ice for 3 days and you won't believe what happened to him. His name is David Blaine and he went inside a block of ice for 3 days, with no food and only one tube supplying him with air and water. At the 61-hour mark, he was beginning to lose consciousness. But he couldn't go to sleep because if he leaned on the ice, he would have gotten severe frostbite. Unfortunately, this led him to have extreme hallucinations. Near the end of the stunt, he called his girlfriend over, but she was immediately pulled away. This made him think that he was dead and that she couldn't see him. After 63 hours, they decided to cut him out, but they said he was so delusional he tried to grab the chainsaw. He finally made it out, but he was so physically and emotionally tired that he couldn't walk or talk. David was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, and after 1 month of therapy, he finally made a full recovery. This guy raised his arm and hasn't put it down for 40 years. His name is Amar, and he has kept his arm above his head since 1979. He decided to raise his arm and keep it there to disconnect him from all the luxuries of mortal life. He said he felt extreme pain when he first raised his arm, but now he doesn't feel it at all. The muscles in his arms have atrophied so much he couldn't use his arm even if he wanted to. His arm is stuck in this position and will continue to be for the rest of his life.
3, 2, 1.
You could have the ability to do this. About 8% of people can. This skill is called voluntary nystagmus, where your eyes move side to side so fast it looks like they're vibrating. If you want to find out how to do this, listen carefully. First, you need to hold your finger about a foot in front of you. Now bring your finger closer until it's almost blurry. At that point, shift your focus between your finger and the background behind it really fast. This will cause your eyes to shake. Comment if you tried it.
3, 2, 1.
You could have the ability to do this. About 8% of people can. This skill is called voluntary nystagmus, where your eyes move side to side so fast it looks like they're vibrating. If you want to find out how to do this, listen carefully. First, you need to hold your finger about a foot in front of you. Now bring your finger closer until it's almost blurry. At that point, shift your focus between your finger and the background behind it really fast. This will cause your eyes to shake. Comment if you tried it. These identical twins married another set of twins even though doctors told them not to do it. Twins Brittany and Brianna literally do everything together. They even went to law school at the same time and got the exact same grades. When they graduated, they worked at the same law firm and would go home and sleep in the same bed. That's when they met twins Josh and Jeremy and they instantly hit it off. And when it came time to pop the question, both the twins proposed at the exact same time. Weeks later, all four of them walked down the aisle together. After that, both couples moved into the same house and now live together. What's even crazier is that they just got pregnant at the same time. But here's the thing, most of the time when two siblings have children, they're considered cousins. But doctors say that's not the case with them since they're identical twins. Instead, their children will be full siblings even though they have different parents. The airline industry hates this man, and I'm gonna tell you why. This man's name is Steven Rothstein, and he's an absolute genius. In 1987, Steven bought a lifetime first-class ticket for $250,000. He then used the ticket and took over 10,000 flights, which costed the company over $21 million. However, they terminated his ticket in 2008 because of how much he was flying. This woman did you-know-what with 919 men in one single day. Lisa Sparks set this record back in 2004 at the annual World Championships in Poland. She was competing against two other women, one of which was the current record holder who did you-know-what with 759 people in one day. But the craziest part is Lisa set this record in only 12 hours, meaning she only spent 45 seconds with each man. These are the strangest graves in the entire world, part 2. On the Tanah Toraja Island, children that die before teething are buried in what they call baby trees. Mothers wrap the babies in a cloth and make a hole in the tree. The baby is then placed in the tree and the hole is sealed off. Ray Jr.'s dream in life was owning a Mercedes-Benz. Sadly, he died at the young age of 15, so his wealthy big brother built a full-size Mercedes-Benz for his grave. Rufus Case wanted to be buried on his rocking chair facing his home state of Louisiana. Sadly, one of his children died before him, so when he passed, they buried him sitting next to his child's coffin. But the good news is he was buried on his rocking chair facing his home. These are the strangest graves in the entire world. This grieving mother added a sandbox to her little boy's grave who had passed away unexpectedly. And now his older brother plays in it every single day. This is the gravesite of a boy who died of an incurable illness in 1865. A few hours before he died, he told his dad he was scared of death because he knew they were going to bury him underground with no lights. So the parents honored his wish and put a window in his tomb. After her daughter died of yellow fever in 1892, a grieving mother wanted to make sure that her little girl was never alone. You see, her daughter was absolutely terrified of storms. So she constructed a staircase that goes directly down into her tomb. Every time there was a thunderstorm, that mother would go to the graveyard and sit with her daughter for hours, comforting her in her grave. There is a place in the US where murder is legal. It is literally called the Zone of Death. This all takes place in Yellowstone National Park. Here are the state lines, and you can see that the park crosses over into Montana and Idaho. And that is the problem. You see this little 50-mile strip of land in Idaho? That is where murder is legal, and here's why. In all criminal proceedings in the US, the jury has to live in both the state and the district in which a crime took place. In other words, if there is any crime that happens in this little strip of land, the jury in the trial has to be people that live in this little strip of land. The problem is that no one lives there, so the case would just get thrown out. Here is how things actually work. This is how your skin scabs over and heals over time. As you can see, your skin does a lot of work to protect you, so stop picking your scabs. Next, we have how ships are actually put into the ocean. As you can see, the ship is built on those ramps, and when it's complete, they just slide it off into the water and somehow it doesn't sink. Next, we have how dogs actually drink water. As you can see, they make these little bowls with their tongue and then just throw the water into their mouth. What would happen if the Queen murdered someone? So basically, anytime someone goes on trial in the UK, it's that person versus the Crown. In other words, it's the Queen versus you. Now, the only problem is the Queen can't actually prosecute herself. So yeah, the Queen can technically get away with murder, but it gets worse. Legally, no arrest can be made in the Queen's presence without her approving it. So if anyone ever tries to arrest her, she just has to say no. This school doesn't have any homework, tests, or any classes. At the Agora school in the Netherlands, life is super easy. For starters, everyone gets to customize their own desk, and these guys used a car. At Agora, students are allowed to use their phones and laptops whenever they want. A regular day at Agora goes something like this. First, students start brainstorming with their friends to find out what they should do that day. After that, it's project time, which can be in any of their major facilities, including woodshop. Then after lunch, there's this period called quiet time, where students are encouraged to meditate and sleep in these little pods. But I have to say, the absolute best part of this school is the students get to decide when they start and when they go home. 2021 has no chill. A group of South African shark hunters just accidentally rediscovered a population of fish that scientists thought to be extinct. The four-legged fossil fish known as the coelacanth predates dinosaurs. And the coelacanth is one of the only species to be rediscovered after going extinct. Would you want to be brought back to life centuries after you die? This may be possible thanks to organizations that cryogenically freeze people after death. This procedure costs anywhere from $30,000 to $200,000. They store bodies upside down in these tanks to protect their heads from damage. Hundreds of people and even some pets are currently frozen in these capsules. Welcome to ridiculous things going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about. Part 23. A NASA satellite that is 14 billion miles from Earth has detected an intriguing constant hum sound. They say the faint hum is caused by constant vibrations near the satellite, and this is what they sound like. Next, freshly made plutonium from outer space was just found on the ocean floor. According to scientists, the extraterrestrial debris arrived to Earth within the last 10 million years. A Japanese oil company came across the plutonium a mile down in the Pacific Ocean by accident. And also on May 26, there will be a blood supermoon. China just landed their first rover on Mars today, and here's everything you need to know. China successfully landing their rover on Mars makes them the second country ever to do so right after the United States. China says the rover's mission is to understand the distribution of ice on Mars. This information would help future human colonists sustain themselves on Mars.
If you weren't scared of the deep ocean already, just wait until you see this.
That was a giant squid that was just caught on camera hunting for the first time ever 2,500 feet deep in the ocean. That little light is a decoy acting as a jellyfish, which is what scientists use to lure the giant squid in to capture it on camera. Oh, and the giant squid in the video is 12 feet long, but is considered a baby.
You know, I do all my own stunts, obviously. I also do my own music.
So I recently came across this guy's account and it really worried me, and here's why it should worry you too. What this guy is doing is called a deep fake. Simply put, a deep fake is when someone else uses artificial intelligence to put someone else's face on theirs. And this gets really scary when you start to think of what this could be used for. This comment sums it up pretty well. This is scary. They can do this to anyone and be framed for something. For example, someone could put your face on theirs and make you say and do whatever they want, and for the most part, no one could tell the difference. Ridiculous science discovery of the day that you haven't heard about. Scientists just unveiled a machine that will refreeze the North Pole and fight climate change. The company Real Ice developed a prototype that drills into an ice cap and pulls water up to the surface. The water will then solidify in the chilling temperatures that reach lows of 58 degrees Fahrenheit. This would create a new layer of ice and thus help the ice caps from melting away forever.
Anyone who is fully vaccinated can participate in indoor and outdoor activities, large or small, without wearing a mask or physical distancing.
You heard right. Just hours ago, the CDC announced that fully vaccinated people don't have to wear a mask or social distance. She said this is because of the continuing downward trajectory of cases and the scientific data of the performance of our vaccines. The CDC also said that unvaccinated people remain at risk of illness and death and should remain masked and practice social distancing. What do you guys think about all of this? Back in 1977, NASA launched their Voyager 1 spacecraft into deep space, and now in 2021, it just found something pretty creepy. Voyager 1 is the farthest spacecraft from Earth, as it literally left our solar system almost 10 years ago. Since its launch, it has traveled over 15 billion miles, and it just now detected a faint, persistent hum somewhere beyond our solar system. To put this into perspective, Voyager 1 is beyond our solar system's border, which scientists thought was empty and desolate, but apparently they were wrong. And what's even more crazy is that Voyager 1 has been hearing this noise for the past 1 billion miles of its journey. It really makes you wonder what could be out there in the vast nothingness of space that we just haven't discovered yet. Back on January 4th, Donald Trump gave the US intelligence agencies 6 months to reveal to the public everything they know about UFOs. So that means on June 1st, the Pentagon will produce its most complete report to date on UFOs. This report will include discussions of incidents and sightings that cannot be explained with present-level human technology. And this gets even crazier as the former director of national intelligence, John Ratcliffe, said this.
Frankly, there are a lot more sightings than have been made public.
So he has not only confirmed sightings of UFOs around the world, but he also confirmed we should expect to hear more about them by June 1st. This is all going to be very interesting, and I will be sure to keep you guys updated if there's any more news. Recently, scientists discovered that the Earth is wobbling, and apparently it's our fault. The main reason this happens is because the location of the North and South poles actually move. Scientists have known this for some time, but in recent years the poles have begun to drift faster than they have in the past. And they concluded this is because of climate change caused by humans. Basically, climate change is heating up the planet, which causes the poles to melt faster. And this new influx of water from the ice melting actually changes the way the Earth moves in space. And this is what is causing the Earth to wobble. Now, no one should start panicking, as this wobble isn't world-ending or anything like that. But we should start taking climate change more seriously before really bad things start to happen that we can't fix. This is my third video talking about the Chinese rocket that was falling uncontrolled back to Earth, and it will be my final one as we just got confirmation it finally made impact. At 10:30 p.m. EST on May 8th, many people captured videos of the rocket burning up in the atmosphere as it fell back towards Earth. It took a while for scientists to find the debris, but now we can confirm it crashed into the Indian Ocean just north of the Maldives. So thankfully it did land in the ocean and no one was hurt. Well, except for any unlucky fish that were at the wrong place at the wrong time. An asteroid traveling 37,000 miles per hour punched into Earth's orbit in 2018, and scientists just figured out where it came from. It created a fireball nearly as bright as the sun before breaking up and landing in southern Africa. After the rock was found, scientists began the task of tracing its origins and were very shocked with what they found out. They said the meteorite likely originated from the second largest asteroid in our solar system named Vesta. The meteorite that landed on Earth chipped off of Vesta after it impacted with another body around 22 million years ago. That means the meteorite was flying through space for 22 million years until it crash landed on our planet, which is crazy to think about. So I made a video about the Chinese rocket that is falling uncontrolled back to Earth, and the 5 million of you that saw it were wondering when exactly was it going to crash. Well, as it's been falling closer and closer to Earth's surface, scientists concluded that it will make impact on May 8th. and they say it will be the equivalent of a small plane crash scattered over 100 miles. But don't worry too much, as it has a 71% chance of landing in the oceans, as oceans make up most of the Earth's surface. But for now, I will keep you guys updated if there's any more news. Welcome to ridiculous things going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about, part 21. Scientists recently discovered the closest known black hole to Earth, and it's closer than you might think. They named it the Unicorn, and it is only 1,500 light years from Earth, which by space standards is pretty close. It is one of the smallest black holes ever discovered, but it is still 3 times the mass of our sun. And apparently scientists say that it was essentially hiding in plain sight, which makes you wonder what else is hiding in plain sight that we haven't discovered yet. But before everyone starts to freak out thinking that this black hole is gonna eat the Earth, let me tell you why you should not worry. The Unicorn might be the closest black hole to Earth, but it is still far away enough where it is completely harmless to us. A solar storm that lit up the entire sky in 1582 could hit the Earth again this century, and here is why that is not good news. First off, solar storms occur when the sun shoots out boiling hot plasma in the form of solar winds. The solar storm of 1582 lasted 3 days and stretched over all of Europe and Asia. Something like this happening today would cause catastrophic events. It would cause worldwide blackouts, billions of dollars in damages, and lots of deaths. And a solar storm, as strong as the one in 1582, is said to happen every century, so we are way overdue for one.
On Wednesday, a submarine with 53 people on it went missing near Indonesia in deep waters. But after countless hours of searching, this submarine is yet to be found.
Just a couple hours ago, news broke that the submarine was actually found. But the submarine was found in 3 different parts. An underwater robot found the lost submarine lying at the bottom of the ocean over 2,700 feet deep. The cause of the submarine sinking remains uncertain, and sadly, all of the crew is considered dead. Welcome to ridiculous stuff going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about. Part 17. Japan is planning to release 1.25 million tons of radioactive water from a nuclear plant into the ocean. The radioactive water is currently sitting in about 1,000 tanks, but storage space is now running out. The radioactive water is from the Fukushima nuclear disaster, which was caused by the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, which was actually the most severe nuclear accident since the Chernobyl disaster in 1986. Japan said that discharging the contaminated water into the ocean was deemed the cheapest and fastest solution. They plan to start releasing the water into the Pacific Ocean in 2 years. But don't freak out too much. Experts are saying that Japan is gonna dilute the water and it will have very little effect on the environment. But please let me know what you think about this in the comments. Welcome to ridiculous stuff going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about. Part 20. A solar wind that is traveling over 1 million miles per hour is due to hit Earth today. And apparently the National Space Weather Prediction Center haven't really talked about it. But before everyone starts to say the world is about to end, just hold on a second. This chart shows the different strengths a geostorm can be, and the one hitting Earth today is a G1, which as you can see is all the way at the bottom. So a solar storm rated at G1 is considered the weakest. At most, it will cause power grid fluctuations, and it will slightly impact the satellites that orbit the Earth. But other than that, you should be just fine. Welcome to ridiculous things going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about. Part 19. Last week, China launched a rocket for its space station, which went really good and it made it successfully into orbit. But the launcher, which is the size of a 10-story building, also accidentally made it into orbit. And it is now falling back to Earth, and no one knows where it's going to crash. It will crash sometime within the next 2 weeks, and nothing of this size has fallen to Earth in our lifetime, so this is major news. Now before everyone freaks out thinking the world is gonna end, just hold on a second. It will partially burn up in our atmosphere, and our oceans are very large. So the chances of it hitting you or a very large city is very low.